Awesome. All right. So as I said, I am Sarah Misial. I'm founder and CEO of People Architectural Group. We are a human resources company that focuses on talent acquisition and talent development. I want to thank every one of you today for being on the line with me. Today thank you for joining us on this platform. We'll be discussing a very important topic, which is employee benefits and the benefits you give to your employee. If you're on this webinar and you are a generalist who is responsible for multiple areas and you are like, oh my goodness, I better take my, I bet, you have recruiting responsibility, training responsibility, development responsibility, your compensation, etc. And you are wondering now you need to kind of start thinking about benefits, because before you know it, we are going to start focusing on the benefit plan. We're going to have employees go ahead and tell them what the benefits are. Don't worry, because today I have industry experts in the line with us who's going to help us understand how we should be thinking about benefit, give us some tips and make recommendation on what benefit will enhance your current plan. And so you can get the plan from okay to good to great and to excellent. We know that right now everybody's talking about the Great Resignation. So it's no joke that the main some reasons that employees are leaving organizations are because of benefit offerings. So we are, just so you know, my guest today is Eap Devey, and I have Cassandra Olea, and they are from USI Insurance Services. And both Cassandra and Cassie, we call her, and Keith, they are phenomenal. They are calling on clients just like yourself. So Cassie, a little bit about Cassie. She has over 10 years of experience in the benefit industry. She has experience working with Fortune 500 insurance carrier sales and marketing teams for mid to large size market. And since 2018, she moved from the carrier side to brokering employee benefits, leading clients in technology implementation. As I said, she worked for USI. And also we have Eap Devey with us. Keith is an employee benefit consultant who advises on capital efficiency insurance and benefit plan. He manages and serves large national accounts, and he's an expert in the national network work stop loss PBM integration and creating innovation strategy to contain cost and delivery exceptional services. Both Cassie and Keith, welcome, and we look forward to this conversation. Do you guys why don't you guys start by telling us a little bit about, what are you seeing in the market? And before we do that, I just wanted to remind everybody that today the agenda is we're going to explore why employee benefits are important. And we're going to talk about discovering the benefits employee looks for post-pandemic. And we're also going to discuss steps to strengthen your current employee plan. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff. And so why don't we start, Cassie? You want to kind of, is there anything else you want to share about your background before we get started? Tell us what you do and how do you support your clients?
Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you everybody for joining us today. Super excited to have you here. So I think, Sarah, you did a really great job of covering, really what I specialize in. Keith and I consult on all things employee benefits for businesses and organizations really in the middle market space segment. So under about 4,000 or 5,000 employees down to about 50 employees. So that's really the space we typically are consulting on for employer groups. And so what we want to do today is we want to discuss all the things that we can do using what you already have and potential additional considerations to really strengthen how you're presenting your benefits and strategizing around them, as well as, what you might be considering. It's, oftentimes employers may keep things the same for many years. And sometimes even just promoting something you haven't before that's maybe always been there and your employees weren't aware of it can be really crucial. And so we'll hit on communication strategies actually twice during this. But we'll go through each of these items. It is kind of a lot. We'll keep it a little bit high level, but I think there should be some really good takeaways. Our goal would be that during each of these specific bubbles, you may have one takeaway from each. Especially if it's not something you've put a lot of focus on in the past. And so from here, we'll just go ahead and dive on into communication strategies, and Keith is going to take that away for us.
Wonderful.
Yeah, hi everybody. This is Keith, and thanks everybody for joining today. And Cassie, thanks for the introduction, and Sarah, thanks for hosting us today. We really appreciate the time. When we jump in and we talk to our clients and we talk to the people that we're working with currently, communication has become one of those items that maybe 2 years ago wasn't on the forefront of everything that we did. But, when the pandemic hit and companies started to transition to a different form of a work environment, what we found was that a lot of things changed. And the way you communicate your benefits can have a massive impact on what the outcome can be. And, just things as simple as, explaining benefits and providing employees with resources around those things can really have an impact on how the company's employees feel about the benefits. And that's what we found has been more important than actual what the benefits are, but actually how those benefits are being communicated. And, 2 years ago, everything was printed. We gave everybody, copies of their open enrollment guides. And we've seen this massive shift in the last 2 years now where, about 65% of people are now looking for everything online. They want to take the time to digest the information. They want to take the time to read it and understand it before they make any sort of benefit decisions. And what we found is that, health insurance decisions are stressful, right? Do you go with the high deductible health plan? Do you go with the PPO? Do you go with the HMO? What's the best decision for you? And if you have a family, what's the best decision for your family as well? And making a decision can be extremely stressful year over year. So being able to do all those things and being able to reach your employees is something that we find is super important, especially in the benefits. So, on the left-hand side here, you'll see there's a list of items that we look at here. And, a lot of the payroll companies have now done a really nice job integrating benefits into their strategies and making sure that you can see your benefits on there and you can make decisions there too. We found that for the last 2 years, especially, has been, we've done something called Brain Shark videos, which we found has been very, very useful for open enrollments where people have a small video that they can watch right before they make the decision to maybe help guide some of those things that they're doing. And then, there's also the group meetings, which are the traditional way to get the communication across. And more and more people, what we found, especially in some of the industries like manufacturing, is, 35 to 40% of people may have a laptop at home. But what we have found is about 93 to 96% of people actually have a mobile phone and have access to a smartphone. And that's really helped us in terms of being able to get the communication that we need out to the people that need it and when they need it, right before open enrollment and then post open enrollment, making sure we're continuing those touches so that people understand the benefits and what's available to them. So, Cassie, you want to
add a couple things. So what we found is having 5 or 6 different ways of communication to get to your employees. So whether that be 1 or 2 minute snippets that are, emailed or texted out, paper communication, those group meetings, all of the things listed on the side, and many, many more. If you chose 5 or 6 different ways, we found that that's going to be your most successful route to go in terms of really making sure you're hitting all of your audiences, especially with such a split dynamic between people preferring in-person versus those that prefer, electronic. And so you want to make sure you're really meeting your teams where they're at in life and in their way that they learn, right? And so 5 to 6 different ways of communication really proves to be fruitful. And the other thing, which Keith did hit on, but I just want to reiterate, half, so 49% of employees openly said health insurance decisions actively stress them out. 20% of employees, so 1 out of 5 of your employees, have said they regret their choices after open enrollment. And so I think everything we can do, sometimes it's almost reactionary where you see employer organizations kind of your 5 and 6 pieces of communication you have to create, and you're working to get these out. Lean on your broker and your teams, and there's a lot of resources out there, Mineral and Think HR that can help generate some phenomenal resources so you don't have to be creating the wheel on all of these. And so you can kind of focus on helping give your employees a more relaxed, longer lead time on these communications. You don't have to communicate what an HSA and an FSA are during open enrollment. You can do those well prior to open enrollment to give them a longer lead time to really become very educated on some of these topics so that they go in feeling more confident and empowered and ultimately less stressed out, less chance of regret. And they'll also view you much more favorably. We know groups that view their benefits, that are educated on their benefits, view them more favorably, regardless of if the actual quality of the benefits changes. And so one of the, I would say, absolute biggest things you can do, and the reason we'll hit on this topic twice, the best thing you can do around your benefits is spending the time around communication first and foremost.
Nice.
Diving into that, this one is something that I feel is extremely important. It certainly is a hot topic right now, and this is family planning. Prior years, we always heard the term fertility, and now what that really has turned into is family planning. So, surrounding family planning, rather than solely focus on fertility, this is going to, So this is a great way to show your employees that you support their families and will meet them wherever they're at. And so on the screen, you'll see Carrot specifically is one of the many family planning vendors that we utilize and our clients and employer organizations are huge fans of, but there's many, many that do this. So there's a lot of options there. But this is a great way to show them that you'll meet them where they are. This specific organization specializes in family planning benefits that lead the way in creating like an inclusive LGBTQ+ community for employees and the employers. And so they support that. With Carrot, there's a lot of different options in ways that they offer flexibility. So an employer can choose to purchase, as an example, the family planning portion where it's just consulting, all the way over to an employer putting funds into an account for people to use it for surrogacy, for adoption, for the actual fertility treatments, whatever it is that that family would need. As you can see here, millennials certainly consider fertility to be a huge part of the discussion and nearly an expectation of their healthcare coverage. Many, over 2/3 would switch jobs for these specific benefits. And the LGBTQ community certainly expects to have, with all the technology out there, the support of these types of benefits. So other considerations that we've listed on here is ensuring that your family medical leave policy is inclusive for all of your staff, and considering adding additional flexibility once somebody returns to work from having a child. And that I would say, especially that added flexibility, considering that on both parents and not just one or the other. We are seeing a lot of interest in parental leave policies from employers that are being revamped right now. Again, we have plenty of resources that can help create some structure around what those could look like. Keith, do you want to add a little bit of some color to this conversation too?
Yeah, I mean, Cassie and I, we're business partners, and we both just have gone through this whole ordeal. And Cassie was a returning to work mother. Her most recent addition to the family just turned 1 recently, so she just went through this last year, and we have a company, unfortunately, that has a flexible policy where we can kind of, we can work where we need to work, and we can do what we need to do when we need to do it. And that added a lot of value. I know for Cassie, because she could do the things she needed to do on her time, and it really made a difference. And then for me and my family, we went through the fertility process, and we got the gift of twins, which has been fantastic, but also challenging too. But it's something that was really important to our family because we've been trying for so long, and it was an important benefit for us to have when we went through that process. Because when you start to see those bills, it's really expensive, and obviously we all have different goals in life, and one of our goals as a family was to continue to expand our family, and that was something that was enabled by our employer. So we were really grateful for that.
So when it comes to PTO, what we are seeing a lot of organizations that are using PTOs where you used to have different buckets of how you structure time off, right? We're talking about specific paid time off. And I am seeing, I'm not sure, Cassie and Keith, if you guys are seeing that a lot of organization, I'm seeing that they are putting everything in one bucket, giving people the opportunity for them to decide how to use the time off. So whether you want to take it to go to the doctor, you want to take it for vacation or so on and so forth, they are not designating how you should use it. It's just that you have a bank of time that you can use. And so this is the new trend that I'm seeing. So you use it however you want, but whether it's 20 days or you have, however many days the organization provide, it's just like you are having more flexibility or yourself to decide how to use that. Are you guys seeing this with any other clients?
Absolutely. So PTO policy has been, I would say, maybe the single hottest topic of 2022 for me. Majority of the employer groups that I work with, as soon as I say, hey, we can benchmark your PTO, most of them are jumping right on that, wanting to see that. Both those ones and ones that didn't need the benchmarking certainly have confirmed that PTO restructuring of those policies is an initiative that they're doing this year. So I would say benchmarking, if you haven't done it in a year, your data is probably already out of date, purely because so many organizations are updating this policy. This is certainly an area to focus. We are definitely seeing exactly what you said, Sarah. Pooling of, you have a PTO bank and use it however you want. There doesn't have to be a sick pay and then vacation pay. It doesn't have to be all these different categories. We'll just put it there. We don't need to know why you need the day off. You just go ahead and take it when you need it. And then holidays, we've seen some of those being, maybe some very specific holidays, and then some additional ones that are floating holidays where employees could choose to take those as they want as well. I would say that those are the most popular structures that we've seen. Keith, is there anything you want to add on to this one? Or do you want me to jump into the next one, the big topic?
Yeah,
no, I think you nailed it all, Cassie.
Yeah. I have a question though. When you're talking about PTO, what are the trends that you guys are seeing from organization you work with when we are referring to short-term disability? So a lot of employers are allowing people to use their PTOs to cover if there's a waiting period or so on and so forth, especially now. Before, disability or short-term disability used to be for somebody who goes on a maternity leave or have some kind of have to have a surgery, it's something like short-term. But now with COVID, more people are going and are using short-term disability. Do you see any trends? Do you see any people allowing employees to use PTO for that purpose, to cover that time they are out because of COVID or anything else?
Yes, so we are seeing employers allow, so usually your short-term disability policies are going to have the elimination period on them. You need to get through before the benefits are going to kick in. And most employers are allowing their PTO benefits to be used during those times if those employees have those benefits. So if you have a 7-day wait for an illness, for example, those first 7 days might not be covered under disability, but they are allowing employees to use their PTO to still be paid during those 7 days. I would certainly say that that's a trend that we've seen. We've also seen a lot of unlimited PTO has become a term that I'm sure many of you have heard. And so during those, they're allowing those first couple of days to essentially be paid out by the company, and then the short-term disability would kick in.
Okay.
Great questions. Are there any other questions? You can type them in the chat if you want to as we go, or anybody is welcome to dive in with a question throughout this as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. I think Cassie alluded to PTO being one of the hot topics that we've been talking about with all of our clients recently, and all of the people that we're working with. And I think hot on its tail has been mental health, and especially mental health in the workplace. And I think what we've seen last year, in the last 2 years, of people, more remote working happening, more stress, more anxiety. there's been a massive shift in not only mental health, but the fact that we now talk about mental health on a regular basis. There is no, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there was almost like a stigma about talking about mental health. It was almost like we didn't talk about it as a culture, but there's been this big shift, this great shift, in my opinion, where we're able to talk about this. We have all these benefits now that are available in most health plans that will cover mental health. And it truly is something that has become super important to the workplace. And, when we talk about, anxiety and we talk about depression, last year, 40% of people reported feeling, like anxious about the future, depressed about the past. And we think a lot of that was related to COVID, but, it kind of opened our eyes to like, maybe there are some things that we can do differently here at the workplace to help people. And then obviously with the shift, in September of last year, we saw, I think it was almost 4 million resignations across the country. And that had a massive impact on a lot of the companies that we're talking to around, are they able to get the right people at the right times now? Are they able to shift what's happening? Because at the end of the day, most companies, the workload stayed the same, but the number of people doing that work may have shifted. So we saw a massive increase in the stress levels last year. And then obviously, people have anxiety about getting back into social situations. There are times when people are anxious about coming to the office, and Cassie always has a really good point about this. We always talk about, you can be the first company back, but then are you also offering the best PTO policy? Are you also offering the best compensation? Are you also offering the best DB? Because if you want to be the first back, that's fine, but you also have to back that up with being first in class or around compensation, around benefits, and being the best at what you do. Cass, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I do. There's a few things I want to add to that. So exactly like Keith just said, I think it's okay to be sometimes the first to rush back if that's something you want to do. And it's not necessary for all organizations. Many have certainly figured out how to run well remote, which is not what we're here to discuss right now. But if you do, have that expectation of employees, there are going to be some that aren't ready to come back from a mental health perspective, and for many other reasons, down to childcare and other things as well. And so there are going to be some people that leave, and there is going to be, and so the discussion becomes, does it shake up your culture as they leave, or is the culture going to be stronger as you get people back in office? And so those are some things to consider, of course, because ultimately all of these things we're discussing go into creating the culture that you have as an employer and that you're creating to drive exactly what you want to be envisioned by your employees as. A few things back into communication, which, like I said, we'll talk about through this today. Communicating mental health. I think removing stigmas in mental health start with communication from your top level of your organization down. Mental health has to be something that does not taboo. It has to be something where management, where it's viewed as, you want to change it. It used to be viewed as like, if you said you had a mental health issue, that your employer might retaliate, right? Or you might be considered unstable, or you might be viewed as lazy, or whatever the stigma was. And we want to remove those stigmas. We want to see your C-suite executives, your management level, and all of your employees capable of having conversations, not forced to, but capable of it. And we want it to be viewed in a way that the stigma is removed, because it is being seen as, when something comes up, as it will for everyone at some point in their life, more than likely, statistically, it's okay to see help. And that's what our top performers do. And so we want it to be an open discussion as, yeah, a lot of my friends, in the executive space, they are seeing therapists, they are seeing coaches. This is okay. This is something we would love. You know what? For all of our employees, if you feel overwhelmed, go ahead and call our resources that we have. Here's who they are. This is something that should be communicated year round, certainly not only at open enrollment. And making sure, I think another thing that we don't always discuss, not only was COVID coming back really mentally draining for employees and definitely stressful, but on top of the health that comes with that, oftentimes we forget when we're in a rush to recruit and retain our staff, that this year, very few of us can probably say that we retained 100%. Maybe none of us can say that. That's stressful on your current staff too. When they see the person that they've developed relationship with over and over again, and that turnover, it can be stressful for them. And I think being able to have that conversation and say, we know this has been stressful. We're aware, you know, this is something all organizations or most organizations are dealing with. Here's how we're handling it. Here's some resources for you if you'd like. Again, communication, hitting it head on and not making these discussions be something that's taboo. Being stressed out about your coworkers leaving doesn't need to be taboo. Being stressed about 100 things doesn't need to be taboo. And so just learning to communicate, create a space for your employees that are, you know, proactive, and a preventative space for them as well, or even if they need intervention, that's okay for them to call as well or go to, and just making it a very acceptable topic. Sarah, can you add anything to this for us?
Absolutely. I think mental health it's so much more than just, there are certain things that we can do to help our employees. I think EAP is a service that many organizations provide, but is underused, right? Is underutilized because people feel like they don't need it right now, or we don't talk about what's going on. I think since 2020, there are so many things that we thought weren't important that are important right now. But I think there are so many things we can do, like work out, having the right mindset. So if you have the fitness reimbursement program for your employee, this is the time to reinforce it, letting people know that it's available. Again, communication. What else do you have? When I was in an organization, I used to bring a massage in the office once a month for my staff to, so that is something that you can do as well. Is there any other services under the EAP program, Kathy and Keith, that maybe are underutilized right now that you think that those on the line, if they don't have it in their program, they should add it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a couple of different ways that can go. And I think, so one of the things I think that's probably underutilized is that people don't know about is EAP is not just for the employee. In 99% of cases, it's extended to the entire family. So if you have a son, a daughter, a husband, a wife, whatever, a spouse, a partner, whatever the case may be, typically the EAP is extended to them as well. So if you have a alcohol and drug issue, EAP can help with that. If you have marital issues, if your marriage is just not as happy as you want it to be, the EAP can help with that. And typically they'll find you a doctor that's in network, and they'll find you some help that you can do with that. And I think, when we start to open up that HR conversation, I'm sure there's a lot of conversations that are had behind closed doors where employees come and say, hey, I'm not feeling great, and I'm not feeling this, and I'm not feeling that. And, it's how do you combat the day to day? And, I was thinking about this, before we got on this call today, and I was thinking about the 5 things that I always try to advise people to do when they're not feeling great. And, the first thing is write down a gratitude list, right? What are you grateful for today? What do you have that you can say thank you for? And then, try to be present, try to spend time in the now. Are you dwelling on the past too much? Are you anxious about the future? Is that project due in 3 weeks? Well, let's not focus on 3 weeks from now. Let's focus on what we can control right now in this second. Can we do a couple of pages of that project right now that'll help us to get where we need to go? And like you talked about, Sarah, exercise. Can you take a walk for 15 minutes every day? And then, understand that work is on work's terms. You have to meet it where it is. And then, one of the things that I personally do, and I find is really helpful, is I try to replace the have tos with the get tos. So I get to go to work today. There's some people who don't get to go to work today. I get to drive my kids to softball practice, and volleyball, and all these other things. And, and whenever I start feeling like I have to go to the grocery store, I say, hey, I get to go to the grocery store. My wife trusts me enough that I won't mess up the list, and I'll be able to get the milk, and I'll be able to get the baby formula. And that's a big responsibility. And I'm trusted with that today. So I get to go do that for her today. So, that's one of the things I try to do, is just shift that mentality of from have to get to. So,
I have a question for you guys. When we are offering benefits, a lot of time we provide benefits to employees that are right there in the office. Right now, with the pandemic, we are more in a hybrid workforce, right? We are before we have people working all over the United States. How do we make sure that the benefits that we are providing, especially those fringe benefits, don't just cover those who are in our local area or is people who are right in our office. How do we make sure what benefits should we provide to be more inclusive, to represent the hybrid workforce that we have, so no one feeling excluded?
So Sarah, I am going to go a little bit to the work from home expense reimbursement here in a moment, but I absolutely benefits wherever your employees are. If you have a broker, please make sure they're continuously aware, at least on, I would say, 2 times a year discussion, if you're growing and moving locations, on where your employees are located. It's critical that they know that, so that they can make sure that the plans that are being purchased do cover everywhere your employees are located or our national plans. Before we jump to the next topic, we did have one of our participants today messaged us, and she's open to just speaking up about her experience around the EAP and how that has really helped her. So I'm going to let her go ahead and speak up.
Thank you. I'm happy to share. This was a very long time ago, about 35 years ago. I grew up in a fairly dysfunctional family, although I didn't know that at the time. But I was in a bad marriage, and I had a little baby, and I was absolutely losing myself. And it wasn't even my employer. It was the company my mom worked for that had an EAP. I was an adult, I mean, technically, but they were still extending that benefit to me. And I found a therapist that absolutely saved my life. She taught me everything I know about, being an adult and being a parent, and just put me on an entirely different track. And had I not had access to that, I can't even imagine where I would be today.
That's good. Sharing that. I think it's so important that the communication will never go away. So we need to make sure that we communicate those benefits to our employees, and we need to make sure that we encourage them to use it, because what's the benefit of having resources that can help you and you don't use it, right? And I'm glad that benefit was available for you, Lori, and that's probably the person you talked to probably kind of have that objective view to help you see what you didn't see, what was right in front of you, right? So absolutely, that's amazing.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I certainly can say that as I became a new mom, was the first time that I knew postpartum anxiety even existed. So not being afraid to reach out to those resources has certainly, I would agree, changed the way that I was able to view things and changed my life as well. We'll dive over, changing gears a little bit, into some of the fringe benefits, and then we'll get into some of the, I would say, slightly what might be considered fringe, but are becoming certainly more common and more expected among your population that you may serve. So work from home expense reimbursement policies, and we'll let Sarah speak to this a little bit, because she is likely a little bit heavier on helping craft these types of policies than we may be. As a broker, we're not helping craft necessarily a work from home expense reimbursement policy. We do often offer things like Mineral Think HR that would provide templates for our employer groups to be able to do so. But I do just want to say that is certainly something that is becoming more popular, and we'll circle back to at the end of the slide, Sarah, if that's okay, and we'll have you speak on it.
Absolutely.
Couple other things. So just with that, 31% of employers are starting to reimburse for those things. And as you can see the statistics, I don't have to read them to you, more are adding it. And I think this is something that a lot of employees are starting to see. Of course, it is kind of a, what do you do, what do you not, right? Because if you start offering work from home benefits, but then you want to get them back in office, and now gas is $5 a gallon. So it's really figuring out what the most appropriate long-term approach, or if you do decide to take a short-term approach, that's okay. Again, communicate that clearly. Hey, for the next 3 months, we'll be providing these benefits, or whatever it is, or hey, we're providing a one-time benefit to those that have worked from home for the last such and such period. And so just making sure that your employees don't start to expect that is part of their budget on a month-to-month basis, and then yank it out while telling them they need to get back in the office, because of course, that's not going to go over as well. So just doing it in the best communication way. I'll go over some of these other very brief fringe benefits, and then we'll jump back to the work from home with Sarah. So the voluntary benefit, accident, hospital, critical illness, voluntary life insurance. Long-term care is often built into that voluntary life insurance now, usually as a permanent life insurance benefit with a long-term care policy built in. For those that may not have heard long-term care recently, but are used to that being previously a very big deal, the long-term care market did crash a few years ago. I don't believe in the state of Illinois you can even get a long-term care insurance policy approved through the Department of Insurance at this point. And so what they've done is they've taken permanent life insurance and built long-term care benefits on those policies that are available in most cases as soon as the policy goes into effect. Of course, they also have health insurance questions, so they don't expect that they're being used regularly immediately. The accident, hospital, critical illness, those are often going to offer you pre-tax options as an employer group, so that's great. Legal, BLAW, legalese, legal shield, all of those types of benefits. Those are something that with communication, we usually see like a year or two of very minimal use. The employer says, hey, do I keep offering this? I don't know if people are interested. I had a few enroll. And then you get one or two employees that really grasp all the things they can use it for, the parking ticket and the house that they're buying, and they don't need to hire an attorney and all of these additional items. And all of a sudden you see usage skyrocket, and the next year you see a ton of people end up purchasing it. So it's a great benefit. A lot of employees really view very favorably once they fully understand it. Home and auto discounts are something you can choose to add with or without payroll deduction, just as an additional perk. These do not need to be done at open enrollment either. So let's say you're in the mid-year and you got a little lull in your benefits. Maybe you want to show your employees you appreciate them and that you're just adding something and you're thinking about them. These are certainly the type of things that you can add to get them some additional discounts without having to make it formal through a payroll deduction per se, or even to do it during an open enrollment. And then pet insurance, all of you I'm sure are very familiar. It's another thing you could consider that we do hear asked about a lot. Sarah, if you don't mind, can we shift back to work from home expense? Could you let us know what you're seeing there and kind of what you're helping people craft, or what your kind of thoughts you're getting on that?
Sure. I think when it comes to what benefit you pay for, in the past, we used to see that executives were the one who get reimbursement for phone, for gas, or certain things, people who travel, or people who needed to be at home. But now we're seeing with the hybrid, there are a lot of expenses, whether it's internet, whether it's phone, whether it is whatever it is that you think your employees can't use, whether it's supplies that you know that they need to make sure that they work effectively. I think the policy should include those reimbursement. And so I'm seeing that a lot of some of the clients that I support, they give a stipend for every employees who are working from home. So whatever that amount is, they give it across line. So they say, okay, I'm going to give you an extra $300 a month to cover your printing for, if you need it, if you need phone and everything else, or whatever that amount is you think that is reasonable for your employees. And I always talk about a lot of things too about fringe benefits. I think when you think about what should I offer my employees, what are the benefits that I should provide them that, it's in addition to the health and so on and so forth. I said, if you do a survey every year for your employee survey for your employees, ask them what's important to you. What would you like to see on the benefits? So instead of you and HR or the executive trying to decide what I want to give them, ask your employees, because what you offer may be different than what the another organization offer. It's whatever is valuable to your employee, whatever will make them feel happy, make them feel like you're listening to them, whatever is going to make them feel like, you know what, I don't have to pay for this today. That's what you should offer.
Absolutely. What a phenomenal way to say it. And And many of these unique fringe benefits too, I just want to say, oftentimes those insurance carriers are in a very competitive spot. And so they're usually very willing to offer credits to you, or so technology credits, self-offset, maybe your Ben admin system or enhancements you have throughout your communications. Oftentimes they might provide, if asked, a unique communication strategy that you typically may not be able to offer, might not be in budget, or even enrollment counselors. Maybe you do that every year, maybe you do it once every couple of years, maybe you only do it when you're enrolling out new benefits. Whatever works for your organization, I would just say that if you are intending to implement new voluntary benefits, that is the perfect time to make an ask for enrollment counselors or those types of things, specifically enrollment counselors that are going to discuss all of your benefits. And you would just want to be really aware if they are going to receive commission on specific products while enrolling your employees. You really want to make sure you understand what that's going to look like to make sure that you're putting your employees in a favorable position during those counselor meetings. Student loan repayment. So this is a topic that people either love or run away from. And I get it, because it is, I think, a tough conversation, and it's a new generation that's expecting, asking, wanting these things. We have previous generations, I think, where a specific percentage of people went to college and many people didn't, and they were all able to make decent livings. And then you have a generation that's now coming into the workforce and has been in for a little while now, that nearly all have gone to college in many of the environments you may see. And so they want some compensation for the fact that they felt they had to do that in order to get where they're at. And maybe they did have to have that degree. So there's a lot of creative ways that an employer can support this. It was considered a top item at a government level last year and this year. And so the Consolidated Appropriations Act did go into place, which allows employers tax-free contributions towards their employees' student loan debt to help them pay it off. Of course, I said it's a top item in government. Like, you haven't heard it discussed already, probably every other news article about how they might forgive federal student loan debt. So this is a way for employers to chip in if they want to. Obviously, you don't have to do the full amount. You can choose whatever does make sense if you would like to help contribute that way. But there's also a lot of vendors. Future Fuel I put up here is one that I really like for a few reasons. But Future Fuel, just as an example, an employer, again, very flexible, can choose what version they would like to extend to their employees. And so they're going to help with not only the student loan debt, but also things like retirement and just general education around finances for your employees. They have everything from helping an employer contribute to their employees' debts and helping monitor what those loans look like and all of that. They do help with refinancing if it makes sense. They provide financial literacy. They have a debit card feature that they can add, the employee could have, so that their debit card rolls up any additional funds. You know, if they're at $6.47 for a coffee purchase, it could round it up to $7 and put those 53 cents onto their student loan into a little account, and then monthly transfer that additional amount to their student loan to help them pay it off more aggressively. Village, where those employees could even ask their family to consider such a thing on their own debit cards to help them pay it off faster. So a lot of options here, but one thing that I always want to make very clear, if you are looking for a student debt consulting vendor, is that you want to ask if they are agnostic and if they are being paid by the lenders. Most of them have a feature that allows your employees to refinance their debt, and many of them will not tell you, or it might be in the fine print, that the coaches that are consulting your employees on their financial well-being and on if they should refinance are also being compensated by the lenders. And obviously that's a pretty big conflict, especially if that coach could say, hey, you work for a nonprofit, and if you file and you've worked there so many years, you could actually get your debt forgiven, but that coach is instead incentivized to help them refinance, which would then take that entire ability away. So you just want to make sure that they're agnostic and that they're not being paid by the lenders. I would say that's pretty crucial.
And I think, Cass, let me just jump in for 1 sec. I think it's a great turnover strategy too. If you're filling an entry level position that starts out at $40,000 a year, and you're offering $45,350 with that contribution that you're going to make, it's a great way to help the entry level people stay for a year, right? If you incentivize them, hey, if you stay for a year, we're gonna go ahead and take that tax-free contribution of $5,350, and we're gonna make it towards your student debts. It's a great way to get a little bit more commitment, especially in a commitment-free market. So sorry, go ahead, Cass.
Beautiful, thank you. No, that's perfect. And then transitioning, we're wrapping up here in the next few minutes. So Keith, do you want to transition over to benefits benchmarking? I think this is obviously when people think of their health, their benefits, health insurance is the most expensive is often what comes to mind. And so I think we should definitely spend a minute or two there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Cassie and I we spend an enormous amount of time on this with companies, and essentially, you know, what this is we take a look at employers' overall plans, and what we do is we take their contributions and we take what they're currently paying, and then we go ahead and we benchmark that against I think, what was it last year, Cassie? Was it 8,000 to 10,000 companies we had that participated in the study?
Yeah, somewhere in that range. It was definitely over 8,000.
So, and what it does is it gives you an idea of where do you really stack up in your industry, in the region, and then also among employers the same size as you. That's something that we've done. We do this as a pro bono project for everybody that we meet. We offer to do it for everybody that we meet, because it's just a great tool to have and a great resource to be able to talk about with your employees. And I've even had employers take segments of this and actually include it in their plan to show, hey, look, for our peer group, you know, you can see the average is $1,067 for the cost of a family. We're only charging you $625. So it just highlights those benefits, because people don't always think about total compensation when they think about that, which leads us to our next slide.
Absolutely. So total compensation statements, these are extremely effective, certainly a favorite among many of your executive teams. And Keith, I'm going to have you continue speaking on this, if that's okay, just about the value of these and some things that people could consider.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things, I worked for a Fortune 50 company for a little bit. And one of the things that blew me away was I got a total compensation letter in the mail one time, and I opened it up and it looked very similar to this. It had the pie chart broken down by what they were paying for medical, what they were paying for my FSA, what were they contributing to my HSA. And when you see your total compensation, it makes you really think differently about how much your actual take-home pay is. And when you start to understand how your compensation actually works. And then as we're kind of wrapping things up here and we start to think about all of the things we talked about today, essentially it all ties back to communication, right? What are we doing to communicate our compensation? What are we doing to communicate our benefits? And what we found is the companies that effectively and what we consider good communicators around benefits and compensation are typically the ones that have the more favorable outcomes. And you know, you can see here in our little handy dandy graph that we have here, the percentage of employees who view their benefits favorably. So you see that on the poor communication piece, they could be just as good at benefits as the good communication piece, but because the communication was excellent, we saw a 62% increase on how favorably the employees viewed their benefits. And that's essentially what it was all about today, was how do we have the best benefits, and then also how do we communicate the best benefits.
And don't be afraid to ask for resources to your broker, other brokers, HR specialists such as Sarah. There's so many different ways to do things that you don't need to be recreating the wheel. And I think that's crucial that you're not spending your time recreating the wheel, but there's some phenomenal strategies out there. Like he said, we do the benchmarking, and oftentimes we take a 52-page report, provide that, but also provide like a 2-page PDF that is geared towards recruiting and showing all the highlights of their strength. And we provide these compensation reports for their employees. And so there's so many ways. Like I said, you want to have a minimum at open enrollment of 5 to 6 communication types. And then, and that's not individual pieces, but total styles, 5 to 6. And then of course, each of those will have a few as well. So that's really just making sure that you get that 62% difference with the exact same benefit plan, that you're on the higher end of good communication.
Yeah.
I know Sarah's going to wrap us up. I just want to say that I absolutely appreciate everybody that was able to join us today. Thank you. I hope everybody's going to have a phenomenal lunch after this, or if you're snacking during it. I hope this was useful, and I hope nobody hesitates to reach out. If there's any resources we can provide, even knowing that you're not searching brokers right now, we respect that and would be happy to help have those conversations, and we would certainly welcome it. Sarah, go ahead and wrap us up.
Yes, well, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for Keith and Cassie for being our guest today. I think we only scratched the surface of this conversation, and I know that Keith and Cassie are welcome to answer any questions that you may have. If you guys want to reach out to them via LinkedIn, if you want them to just give you some more tips, please reach out to them. We thank you for being on the phone with us. And then also for People Architectural Group, if there's anything that we can help you from a learning development and staffing, we are here to serve you. We are here to make sure that you are not alone. We want to make sure that we want to let you know that we want to partner with you. So give us a call. Again, thank you everybody for your time today. And this video, the recording will be sent out to all of you. And we hope you have a great lunch, whatever you're doing next. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you guys. And I just want to say Sarah has been a phenomenal resource for our clients. So thank you for everything you do and for having us on today, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good day, everybody.
Bye-bye.